speaking of criticism, you went in a professional capacity to see a gig this past weekend.
Yeah, this is true. And it was for the band And You Will Know Us by the Trail of the Dead. And I wasn't really very familiar with the band. And I didn't really I wasn't aware of the genre. I just thought, like, I don't know if I was for or against the fact that their band name was a paragraph long to begin with. But I felt basically that it was going to be okay. And then I got there, and it wasn't, again, this isn't a question of good or bad. So we're not discussing whether the band was good or bad, because they were okay. But because the crowd there was so bizarre and was sort of nothing like I'd personally ever experienced. Granted, I go to virtually the same kind of gigs all the time of my own volition. So this was, you know, something of a departure in any case.
What kind of gigs would they be, Mia?
Just all metal.
Dark metal.
Yeah, dark metal. That's not a genre, but
did you did you see the letter in the MX today? To a cute girl at the Cradle of Filth concert wearing a crucifix,
really?
Coffee, drink.
Wearing a crucifix.
It's like, I spewed on you.
Yeah.
Next week.
Animal entrails?
Well, the crowd at this place was all guys in their 30s pretty much. There were some women, but they were eclipsed by the number of guys. And they were all... I tried to figure out, I thought it was a metalcore crowd at first because there was a lot of hoodies and little glasses. And then... But I was unsure, and I sort of looked to other people. I usually look to see if there's a metal guy in the crowd who will sort of let me know how I'm meant to be responding to this gig.
Right.
And because the guys on stage, one guy was headbanging with, like, you know, with everything that he had in him. And I was like, okay, so people are meant to headbang or not? Because they didn't. And then people were just pointing, like, one finger up. So they weren't throwing the horns. They were pointing one finger and with, like, enthusiasm. And this was being done by, by possibly a couple of dozen people. They all knew to point a finger.
I wonder if that's a band thing, like the Darkness used to have the thumbs up. That was their song.
I reckon it's a New Zealand thing, personally. I don't know why. I'm just going to put that out there.
The thing that
it's
strikes me
weird.
as funny about And You'll Know Us by the Trail of Dead is I think I kind of, on some level, confused them with Godspeed You Black Emperor because of the wordiness of their name. And whenever I go back to listen to them, I think they just sound like Simple Plan.
Yeah.
And also they have the worst album artwork of all time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like the music definitely does bear a resemblance, but then with regards to the crowd, there was almost a mosh developing about halfway through the night. Almost. But it wasn't a mosh, it was a bounce.
Oh.
Right? Firstly, seeing a group of men around the age of 30 bouncing was sort of weird. And then it wasn't even a full bounce. It was almost as if they were just bouncing like a couple of centimetres up and down and then couldn't fully commit to it and it just sort of faded out.
Where would the gig fit in your year so far if you look forward to, say, December when you're tabulating your lists? Does it rate?
I don't know. I went to a sort of similar gig, similar in the sense there was a lot of bouncing. That was the Butterfly Effect. But that was such a weird show because I happened to be there with a guy who worked at my Coles and I fell down during the gig and like I almost got stood on and he ran up to me at this point in the night and I was a bit scared because I did actually thought I thought at the time I could actually be hurt. He dove in and pointed at me saying, "You're crazy, man, you're crazy," and then ran away.
Great.
And I'm like, I was processing the information that, oh my God, I know you work at my Coles. And then 2, why are you talking to me now?
And oh my God, I'm dying.
Yeah, and 3, like, can you, like, what are you doing? Like, I'm clearly on the floor and confused anyway. It was like, he was like, I'm going to go up and chat now.
Yeah, this would be a good time to introduce myself.
Yeah. In both instances, they weren't good gigs or particularly bad gigs, but they were so disturbingly odd. And yeah, the whole Trail of the Dead crowd was just such a strange one for me. It almost felt like it was overgrown emos or something. Because there were young people there as well, but there was an agedness to it.
Well, speaking of
Why you
young
got to
people,
throw that out of the fridge, you know, just...